La Signora, also known as the Fair Lady, who once went by Rosalyn Karushka Lowfather, the beautiful maiden from Mondstadt, engaged to be wed, and one of the greatest students to ever come out of the Sumeru Academia, would become one of the most feared individuals in all of Teyvat. So let's tell the tragic story of the Crimson Witch of Flames. Rosalyn lived in Mondstadt 500 years ago. As a maiden, she loved to sing, and she eventually fell mutually in love with a knight named Rostam. She was accepted into the Sumeru Academia, which would mean she'd have to have a long-distance relationship with Rostam for some time while she studied. Rostam gave her a special hydro timepiece to keep track of the amount of time she would be away. It's not said exactly what she studied, but it can be assumed she studied some pyro magic of some sort, though what means she actually used to harness pyro without a vision is unknown. The cataclysm struck hard across all of Teyvat, each nation going through a catastrophe. This is one of the biggest conflicts in Teyvat's entire history, and unfortunately it struck while she was in Sumeru studying. In a panic, she returned to Mondstadt, only to learn the tragic truth that Rostam had died in the battle against the monsters. We know that the monsters attack each nation, and each nation did their best to defend off the hordes of monsters coming out of the abyss and of Conria. And on that day, she would never be the same. She literally lost the love of her life. And in an attempt to cleanse the monsters and cleanse this world of all that is wrong, a grieving maiden from Mondstadt was consumed by her own flames. And this would be the very beginning of what would be known as the Crimson Witch of Flame. It is rumored that she abandoned her mortal body and instead let liquid fire flow through herself with an art that is now lost to history. Like I said, she was a prodigy at the Sumeru Academia, probably a forbidden art she picked up, but during this whole process she would accidentally burn her own face, scarring her body in the process. Although she only targeted monsters and demons, she became feared by the people. She also started to wear a mask to cover the burns on her face, and she was almost devoured by her own flames. It got out of control, until she was approached by the 1st Fatui Harbinger and the director Pierro the Jester. He found her and decided to make her an ally. She was given a cryo delusion to suppress her flames. This is where she became known as La Signora, the 8th of the 11 Fatui Harbingers. Once she officially joined the Harbingers, she willingly cast aside and forgot about her past. And this would actually be the final step and the full transition from a young beautiful maiden in Mondstadt to the feared Crimson Witch and Fatui Harbinger. It is unspecified what she was up to between the time she was recruited until the Traveler actually shows up in Mondstadt, but it is suggested that she showed up in Mondstadt before the Traveler actually arrived. D-Luke actually referencing and warning us about her. Her subordinates were placed in various parts of the city, and most of them resided in the Goth Grand Hotel, which was rented out by her fellow Harbinger Pantalone specifically and exclusively for Fatui use. And this is actually where we would see La Signora for the first time, when she confronts the Traveler in Barbados, stealing his gnosis and being the first gnosis actually collected by a Harbinger. Not before she bitch slaps Benty, of course. Doing this while the Traveler was pinned down by her subordinates. Being one of the actual most efficient Harbingers amongst the Fatui, Signora would then go to Liyue and actually be the representative for the Tsaritsa in the new contract that was to be signed with Morax, the Geo-Archon, to stage his own death and future of Liyue in exchange for his own gnosis, having Tartaglia be manipulated to cause chaos and help bring the Adepti and people back together. Zhongli very satisfied with how this goes. I did talk in a video not that long ago how Morax feels remorseful toward the Tsaritsa, but regardless, I don't think Signora was going to be slapping around the Geo-Archon. But Zhongli was satisfied with how this whole thing plays out, and as agreed upon, he gives the Geonosis to La Signora, as per their contract with the Tsaritsa. Oh, shit! With 2 Gnosis now in her possession, Signora swiftly heads for Chesnaya, after Tartaglia is pissed off being left in the dark and refuses to join her. Out of all 11 Harbingers, she has bagged 2 Gnosis on her own now. Signora would also be involved in the affairs of Inazuma as well as Scaramouche in the Delusion Factory, where they would have a brief discussion and banter before she would ultimately go confront the Shogun, but would be confronted by Kujo Sara, and would swiftly defeat her. Signora, having a discussion with the Shogun, the traveler would arrive, and Signora would flaunt her status as a Shiznayan diplomat, and plays ignorant to all the Fatuis done in Inazuma, including the Vision Hunt Decree and the distribution of delusions. The traveler would then challenge Signora to a duel before the throne, which the Shogun approves of. Confident in her ability to defeat the traveler, Signora accepts. The traveler proved to be formidable enough that she sought that her cryo delusion to be too restricting and deactivates it, transforming into the Crimson Witch of Flames. Despite this, she loses in a close duel and returns to her normal appearance and falls to her knees in a weak and defeat state. As per the rules of the duel though, she is executed by the Raiden Shogun's Muso no Hitachi, and in the face of her impending doom, Signora loses her cool and flies into hysterics before making a final lunge at the Shogun, only to be sliced by the Shogun's blade. Signora's body dissolves into ashes, seen as that she doesn't have a mortal body anymore, which leaves the traveler and Paimon stunned, and that would conclude the story. Say what you will, but there's worse ways to go than the Raiden Shogun's Buba sword. There is no shame in being cut down by that legendary weapon that's cut down countless gods. And that will conclude the tragic story of the Fair Lady of Mondstadt, a heartbroken maiden and scholar being consumed by grief and anguish and being taken advantage of by the master manipulator himself. Despite her death, La Signora is still to this day one of the most efficient Fatui Harbingers, gaining 2 gnosis for the Fatui and was well on her way to gain a 3rd. She bit off more than she could chew, and her arrogance was her downfall. That is the complete story, but before I wrap the video up, I want to touch on what I think might have actually led to her death. The political side of it leading up to her actual death, leading up to her meeting with the Raiden Shogun. I have a theory that perhaps La Signora was sent there to her death all along. I really think Yaimiko and Pierro Scaramouche were all in on this, as Yaimiko had something to gain, and so did Pierro.
Let every worthy sacrifice be carved in ice.
I think Signora was intentionally led astray into thinking the Raiden Shogun or the puppet had her own gnosis, but we all know that Yaimiko carried the electro gnosis for a very long time, while the real Raiden A sat in the plane of Euthymia. I think Signora was sent there knowing full well that she would probably be killed, but this benefited both parties, as Pierro ultimately needs the gnosis from each Archon at any means necessary. Everyone that works under him is a piece on the chessboard after all, and Yaimiko needed Raiden Aid out of the plane of Euthymia, and this was the most efficient way to do it, as Signora would kickstart the events that would actually free Inazuma. If the Fatui were able to infiltrate and manipulate Inazuma through delusions and the Vision Hunt Decree, there's no way they did not know where the true gnosis lied. I really do believe that Signora was sent to her death, but that is just my theory. Either way, I highly doubt she'll be resurrected, but you never know. That is her story. I do hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you for watching. Like and subscribe if you'd like to see more content like this, and as always, we will see you all in the next one. Later.